Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I want to talk about what's going on over in Europe and with the immigration crisis and the crackdown on speech. And it's a really interesting topic from an American perspective. So I want to start off here, and I might even take some calls if you guys want to call in, chat a little more. What I'm trying to figure out is why are these governments doing this in Europe? I know that there's different perspectives, obviously, on this. There's, um, oh, they're just evil, terrible, crazy people, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. I think there's probably some kind of logic behind it. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but I want to try to go through that and figure that out a little bit, and maybe we can discuss that more. If anybody's from the UK, maybe we can get some more insight from you on these issues. But this guy here on the screen is Graham Linehan. He was arrested recently at Heathrow Airport for posting transphobic tweets on X. And so five armed police officers, armed, granted, that's a big deal in the UK, and five of them went to the airport and arrested this guy for tweets because he was under suspicion of inciting violence. Let me read to you what the tweets were. So his first one was, if a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. So, this guy's a comedian. That's kind of funny. He's pointing out the funniness of that. They got a man in the women's restroom or whatever. Incitement to violence, not really. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, is this, in your mind, does this qualify something like that? So in another post, he included a photo of a trans rights demonstration, and then he put as a caption, a photo you can smell. Is that incitement to violence? And then that was followed by another tweet that said, I hate them, misogynists and homophobes, F them, referring to the trans rights demonstration. So actually what he's doing here is he's calling the trans rights people misogynists and homophobes. He thinks that they are that. So is it, what exactly is inciting violence here? It's just saying that he hates these demonstrators, or that he's calling them misogynists and homophobes, which there could be a case made that they are misogynists and homophobes a lot of the times. So anyway, he makes these tweets. 5 armed guards come and arrest him, as if they've got nothing better to do than to arrest people putting tweets online. And this is the same time Starmer says we have a strong history of free speech here. What is free speech? Means any speech that the government doesn't deem hateful. That's what free speech means. Wouldn't free speech mean free from government control and oversight and abuse? That's what free means. So what do you guys think? If you've got any comments, you can comment on my YouTube channel. If you're over on X watching this, be sure to come on over to my YouTube channel and post your comments. I'd love to have you over here. And don't forget to subscribe and like and share so the channel can grow. Now, I would be really curious to see what the ratio is between, because there's plenty of trans rights advocates who put hateful stuff like this online too in the UK. Kill the haters and punch them and burn stuff down and all this kind of stuff that's just as could be qualified just as much as incitement to violence as what this guy wrote. And there's plenty of stories also of people putting these hateful messages on Twitter and getting, I think one lady just got released after 31 months, or maybe she was supposed to do 39 months or 31 months. And then they'll have cases where a migrant will rape somebody or something and they'll get off with parole or something. So, I keep thinking to myself, what is going on? Why would they be so concerned about these tweets and seemingly less concerned about migrant sexual abuse crimes? So, for example, let's take a look at this. I made a chart of the UK and their rape. Well, it's not rape, it's sexual offense convictions. This is in England and Wales. So you see here the nationals are the baseline. Foreign nationals are 2.4 times more likely to be convicted of a sexual offense. Afghanis 3 times more than the native population, 2.5 times. Then we got 2.2 times, 2.8 times, 2.6 times. These are all different groups. So when these things are happening, people are not going to be real happy about that, obviously. So why is a lot of times these people will get out with light sentencing. So why is that? What is so beneficial about these people that you will overlook stats like this? I mean, these are pretty staggering numbers. And so these numbers are going to lead to discrimination against these groups by the common people because they have to live amongst them and they have to experience all of this. People like Starmer and the politicians and the leaders, they get to live in their gated communities and they don't have to deal with this firsthand. So let's take a look at some more stuff that's going on over there. So obviously lots of Muslim migrants, but here, take a look at this. This is how they treat their own native population.
Yes.
So the 11-year-old kid has an English flag draped around him, and the cops come there and they don't arrest him, but they have a lot of questions for him.
They have to make a as well.
He's 11. Are you trying to target me or something? You want to take my children and go home. That's what you want. So you're going to target my children, yeah?
I'm not talking
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so making a big deal over this kid wearing a flag. My guess is probably that they're deeming this English flag, I think it's St. George cross, they're deeming it probably that it's racist, it's probably homophobic, it's got all these negative connotations. Whereas these people think that it's being patriotic, it's caring about your own country, it's showing pride in your people and where you're from and the things that you've been able to accomplish in your culture, your civilization. And people have been putting these up all across England. And other English people will come and tear them down, burn them, steal them. And it's a real issue. Same thing in America. I've seen numerous people post on here that if they see you flying an American flag, they're going to assume that you're racist or that you're a bigot of some sort for flying the flag of your own country. How does that make any sense? But it's sort of this double think. So let's take a look at some more stuff that's going on over there. A lot of this is driven by the Muslim immigration. This post here says this guy lives in London, has 3 wives, each living in a different home and each receiving benefits funded by British taxpayers.
If she had said no to me about the niqab, it would have been an issue, only for a number of reasons. Why? Because my other 2 wives wear niqab. Yeah, and they didn't used to before I married them. I feel like she's something covered and protected for me. Some people, they cover their cars, don't they? They put these sheets over their car. They cover their valuables. They keep it away from people seeing and wanting and desiring things that they have. And in a similar way, your wife or my wife being covered, it's a protection for me.
I have to remember that he had got family before me.
So do you miss him when he goes away?
Of course, yeah, I do.
Aww.
I miss him.
That's nice.
What else is she gonna say? No, I hate this guy. He's a piece of shit.
In an East London park, Hassan is getting all his families together. Although they live in separate houses, Hassan likes them all to meet up. 2 older children from his very first marriage also join them.
Okay, so I'm not really for this everyone in the same house. Ideally, maybe it sounds great, but it's a bit too much pressure. Sparks might fly over anything. Whose turn is it to cook? You don't really want that. You try to limit as much conflict as you can. It's all about conflict limitation.
It's the first time his wives Sakina and Nabila will meet his new 3rd wife, Anab.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any advice for her about the husband?
That's good. Well, don't know.
He's grumpy in the mornings, he snores at night, and all the rest. Who knows what else? Okay. Khadija, Saleh, Nabila. This is Sister Anab. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. You want to play some football, Khalid? Want to play football? Yeah. You can't just really relax. You have to kind of be very careful. Don't joke too much with her without joking with her. If she doesn't understand the joke, she might take it negatively and think it's about her. Don't overshow your emotion to one of them. This is the time when you really just have to be very strict and so you can't really, come and relax and then,
Well, so this is the England of the future. So how does this guy afford to have 3 families? I mean, I think people who are negative about this, they will say, well, it's because the government's subsidizing this guy's life. Maybe he comes from a rich family in the Middle East or something. I don't know why he would go to England if he was from a rich family, but he's obviously that costs a lot of money. How does he provide for all of that? 3 different houses? This is. And if it is taxpayer funded, then that's a real problem. So, and then the liberals and stuff there are saying weird stuff like this. The countryside is overwhelmingly white, needs more halal food, report claims. Academics urge that rural England should make sustained inclusion efforts for ethnic minorities. Why? What's the problem? I mean, they're just living their lives. They didn't. British countryside's been labeled overwhelmingly white and slated for not having enough halal food options in a new report. Why are they so obsessed with Muslims entering into every single corner of their society? Well, I don't understand it. I don't get it. And here's some Muslim business owners who are making fun of the English.
Right, Haas, hold this 1 second. I'm going to put this flag up. This is our... You know
Born
what?
and bred in this country.
Listen. You want to do some serious yeah?
Let's go.
Right. I'm going to climb up this lamp.
I'm going to go paint some roundabouts.
Listen, shut up, man. Let me just put this up.
I'm going to go paint some roundabouts.
Can't climb up there. Bro, what's happened to you? Hell, how are you gonna unalive the immigrants? Hello? Wake up! Wake up! Unaliving the immigrants, bro. Come on, G. The hotel, we need to go to the hotel. Where are they kept? Where do they keep these immigrants? Which hotel is it? Which hotel is it, bro?
All right, so, not all that funny, but making fun of the protesters, the English protesters who are concerned about the Muslim migration and how quickly it's infiltrated their country. So, one of the funny things is I just saw a video yesterday, Starmer being interviewed about these migrant hotels that these guys reference and that a lot of protesters have been outside of. And Starmer says the strangest thing. He says, yeah, I get it that people don't want these hotels in their neighborhoods and in their towns. I get it. I understand. I don't want one in my town or my neighborhood either. And now he's claiming that he wants them all shut down. But the problem is that they have a processing error. There's a processing delay, and so it takes time and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know, maybe he's feeling the pressure, maybe he's not. I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe he's actually changing his policy. I'm not sure. So I think this is the big issue. This is what most people are talking about, and it's this sexual abuse of children that have come along with this, like the chart that I showed you guys earlier, that these migrants are many times more likely to sexually assault. It's like that video I just showed about the Muslim guy. They see females as property. They're not people unto themselves. They're like a car that you put a covering over. They're like a valuable item that you want to keep for yourself. Things like that. They don't really see them as equals or autonomous individuals. They're sort of there for them. And so it's not surprising that somebody with an attitude like that would end up causing a lot of abuse and not really understanding what the laws are of the society. However, that doesn't make it okay, doesn't make it justified, doesn't mean they shouldn't be punished just as much as if you go to their country and you don't know all their laws and you break one of the crimes, they punish you. So what they do is they give them lighter sentences and let them off early. So here we got grooming gangs, which are around the country there, commit nearly 2 child sex abuse offenses every day. And these are the police figures. So this is the best case scenario. It's very similar to the chart I was showing you earlier. Now, this isn't just happening in the UK. This is happening all over Europe. So this is in Marseille, France, and this is another reason that, and the leaders and their backers, and I'd love somebody to set me straight on this. They claim that there is no increase in crime. There's no relation to migrant increase and crime increase. But then we get videos like this. This guy's got a knife. He stabbed, I think, 3 people. All right, yeah, probably should stop it there. But anyway, the police come there and they eventually shoot him. I believe they killed him. But there's tons of these videos where these migrants have their knives and they're running around stabbing people. You know, and so you can't send your children to walk down the street to your school because there's a higher risk of sexual abuse. You can't go to the city center because there's one of these wackadoos with a knife stabbing people. And I don't see how the crime rate hasn't gone up. So, but a big driver of this is the sexual crime. So this is more sex crime stats for foreign nationals in England and Wales. So look at these countries: Sudan, Afghanistan, Eritrea, Iran, Iraq. I mean, and these are really high rates. So people who are saying that this isn't an issue and that the migrants aren't problematic just are not following the data. It seems like they really are. So why are the leaders so obsessed with letting these people into their country? You know, Belgium, before too much longer, is going to be a majority Muslim country. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. A majority Muslim country right there in Europe. And then will they institute Sharia law? Will they crack down on the foreign-born citizens? Let me just, maybe you guys can let me know if I'm way off on this, but I was kind of putting some stuff together here on what I think maybe is going on, and to try to not just straw man proponents of these illegal immigrants coming into the country. So I'm going to read this off. I want you to let me know if you think this is anywhere close to what's going on. So we've got a couple different categories. So, for example, demographics. I wonder if that's a major driving factor here. The population is dwindling, has an aging population, fewer working people then to fund the pensions and support health services and all the big, this is an issue of the welfare state. You have to have a ever expanding base to care for the more and more expensive social services. So migrants are typically younger and more likely to work. Migrants are typically younger and more likely to work. So they help keep the system afloat. What do you think? Is that true? I've seen stats where it's something like 60% of these people are unemployed. Without immigration, the tax base shrinks and the welfare system becomes unsustainable. Is that I think that's a big driver in all of this. Even if some migrants rely on benefits at first, their children often enter the workforce, providing long-term support. let's take a look at this. I'm assuming this guy's from the UK. We have more free speech than US will ever have. Follow Farage, Putin's and Trump's best pedo friends, and you will suffer just as Americans are now. Trump is closing Smithsonian history down. Check it. I don't know. This all caps seems like this is probably not somebody from the UK, but that's just completely ridiculously false. More free speech than the US. That's dumb. That's just retarded. Okay, so also maybe there's like an economic aspect to this. So migrants will fill the jobs that locals don't want or won't do, or maybe there's not enough population to fill those jobs, like agriculture, food processing, low wage work. Maybe they start businesses, corner shops, taxis, restaurants, so they are contributing to the economy. That some of them are skilled, like doctors and engineers, and so they can fill in these gaps for specialties, and that helps the UK become more of a global dynamic economy, and they couldn't handle it on their own. Is this what they think? And maybe they're right. I don't know. So also, there is a piece of this that is compassion based or humanitarian based. So I think Britain feels like morally, as one of the world's richest countries, they have a duty to give safety to people escaping conflict. Now that maybe that's a result of their Christian past and the Christian heritage. I don't know. And many of these migrants are fleeing wars the West itself intervened in. So Britain has a responsibility to take them in. Is this that could be what they think? I'm trying to give them the best case scenario here. So by accepting refugees and migrants, the UK demonstrates its commitment to human rights and humanitarian value. And this boosts soft power abroad and strengthens its claim to moral leadership compared to authoritarian states. Being seen, also, they like to be seen as tolerant and open, for diplomacy, international cooperation, trade agreements, things like this. They also think diversity is a good in and of itself that brings new ideas, innovation, cultural richness like food, music, arts, and it goes along with London's status as a global city and its multicultural character. And they believe that exposure to different cultures can make societies more adaptable, creative, and resilient. I think these are all reasonable things to think. This is sort of more of like the globalist mindset. So it will bring political stability in the long term, and excluding or deporting migrants could cause riots and unrest, and it could radicalize other migrants. So letting them in and integrating them slowly, giving them opportunities, it's framed as a safer path than sort of keeping them out, forcing them, having them resent you. So it's sort of like being nice to them is going to make them not want to take over your country or kill you or stab you or rape your kids. And I am assuming that they think that eventually that'll all go away, because that's just sort of a holdover from their Stone Age culture that they come from. And once they integrate into the UK and get trained and have kids, then those kids will be trained to not do that stuff. And so everything will be kumbaya better. So inclusive policies are thought to reduce the risk of extremism. So they think that the strongest defense is that immigration is not just charity, it's framed as a long-term investment in the economy, society, and Britain's global identity, even if the short-term costs are real. And this is if that's true, then this is a real problem, because the people are saying, hey, these short-term consequences, we don't like it. We don't want it. We don't want to pay for these people. We don't want to put our kids at risk. So stop it and knock it off and get them out. And it's not just a UK issue. Here's it's this same thing's going on in Australia. Look at this. The more what I think a lot of these protests really are is the people. It's this too standard version of leadership. So migrants and minorities get a higher status, more leniency, less restriction than the majority of the population. And so the majority population is judged more harshly. They are not given as much leeway. It's almost like because they have the power, they have to be watched, or else they're just going to oppress and dominate and hurt the minority groups. And so there's a lot of that going on here as well, and that's what happens with the two-tier policing. King Dusty, let's see what you have to say here. The average migrant is a net contributor to 16,000 per year in the UK. Our care and health systems also rely heavily on migration for staff, and because they are publicly funded, keeping wages low in those sectors is in the interest of the country. Okay, so this kind of similar to what I was saying, that it is about filling those job needs. Now, I think the average migrant is a net contributor to 16,000. So how is it that half of them could be unemployed and the overall total still be that high? Or maybe I'm wrong on that stat, but I swear I saw that somewhere, because a lot of them can't work when they get there because they have to get a work permit. Now, are we talking, do you know is there a difference between the legal migrants and the illegal or refugee status migrants? Yeah, that's okay. Good. Thanks, King Dusty. There is a distinction between migrants and asylum seekers. Well, okay. Yeah. So the asylum seekers essentially is, I think, what people have the problem with. Is that what you think? I don't think people have a lot of problems with the migrants who are skilled, like, doctors and healthcare workers and things like that. It's more so the people who live in these hotels, they claim refugee status. There's not a lot of that they have to do to claim refugee status. They kind of just show up and say it. And they're not really integrating. They're not really interested in doing that. So you have to have a job to migrate to the UK. Asylum is different. Okay. Yeah. And these are the asylum seekers that people are having these issues with. And I'm assuming that's probably the same thing that's going on here in Australia. So I think this is a big issue too. And
what I'm doing now, what I've been doing through the years, is promoting the Sharia through peaceful means, you know, through speaking about Islam, by speaking about the justice of Islam, and also putting down democracy as a hypocrisy.
If someone said, Abdul Hakim, I'm going to join ISIS or some other terrorist group, and I'm going to take a SUV and I'm going to run it down Westminster Bridge, would you report them to the police?
It's not allowed. It's not allowed. It's not allowed for a Muslim to report on a Muslim brother.
So you wouldn't?
It's not allowed in Islam.
So that's a no.
It's not allowed in Islam.
Okay, so this guy asks him if he had a friend who joined ISIS and was gonna rent a van and drive it down a bridge and hit people, and he knew about it, would he go tell the authorities? And this guy's response is no, because it's not allowed to. You're not allowed to, you know, narc on or send to the police Muslims. I mean, that's disturbing for people to hear, right? So like, if none of them are going to be watching the others and trying to police their behavior and trying to make sure that the bad things aren't happening, if they just have to stay quiet about it while the criminal goes and does what he does, that's a problem. You know, now people are going to see this kind of stuff and be like, okay, so well, who knows what all kinds of stuff they're planning and they're plotting that we'll never find out about. So there's probably all this insidious stuff going on in the background that we don't even know about. What else could they be doing? King Dusty, thanks for the comments. So sure, but this is the problem. Social media represents a part as the whole, whereas in reality, if you go to a mosque or speak to Muslims, you see they're the same as us. Yeah, so obviously social media only presents one thing, and usually it's always the extremes. However, that's why I was looking at the stats. And so the stats of sexual abuse and conviction is multiple times higher for the asylum seekers than it is for the Brits. So there's something that's there. Now, obviously, no culture, no group is a monolith. So you can't see one member of that group do something bad and then say, see, they're all bad. But if the numbers, the numbers across the group as a group are higher, then people are going to associate every member in that group with that thing. I mean, it's an unfortunate aspect of how humans sort of see things and think about things. Your media is run by a billionaire elite. It's in their special interest to blame migrants for social inequality. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know about this. Also, white Brits are convicted for 75%. 35% of the population is white British. Of London, or what exactly? I'm not sure exactly what you mean there. I mean, the white Brits or the native Brits commit crimes too. I mean, I don't think that's surprising to anybody. In the UK is only 35% white. Is that what you're saying? I mean, that could be. I don't know. To me, it's not really about their color of their skin. I guess it's more about their asylum seekers and where they're from and what their ideology is. Okay, so hold on. What did you mean by this? Also, white Brits are convicted for 75%. 35% of the population is white British. So 84% of the population, but 75% of the CSA crimes. Do you know what it is for the asylum seekers? What percentage they are, and what percentage of the CSA crimes they are convicted of? So I mean, you're kind of assuming that 25% of them are by maybe, I don't know, immigrants or refugees or asylum seekers. So not only is this going on in the UK, but it's also going on in Japan, of all places. I was not aware that there was issues. They want the asylum seekers out of their country too. Now, if anybody has a population crisis, it's Japan. And so I don't know how they're going to deal with their issues without bringing in more people. But you know, it's just this thing's all over the place. King Dusty, okay, thanks. You're really helpful. I really appreciate that. Asylum seekers aren't logged, but for Afghanis, I believe it was 8%. Okay, 8% of CSA crimes, or of the convictions. Okay, I get what you're saying. They're probably a smaller percentage of the population than 8%, though, so it'd be disproportionately higher for them, probably. You know, it's not like there's an easy solution to any of this stuff, and sort of the extreme polemics probably are not going to solve the problem. We're going to need reasonable solutions. So why do you think, King Dusty, maybe you have an opinion on this, why do you think that the government is being so lenient on Afghanis or asylum seekers when they do commit these crimes? Do you think it's because they don't want to radicalize them? Is it because it just seems kind of disrespectful to the victims, right? So these young girls are being, you know, terrified and terrorized, and then their perpetrator doesn't even go to jail or anything. It's like there's no consequence. And I think that's really making people mad. So, and this is why I think this is what a lot of the local people,
your lawyers under
this.
your guidance have said in terms that the rights of asylum seekers are more important than the rights of local people in Epping.
Yeah. So this is what people are experiencing. Their rights are more important. They're put ahead of English rights, British rights. And this lady is a leader. And this guy's grilling her on it. It's like, this is what people are saying. Why are you saying that their rights are higher than Native British rights? It's because they're the minority group. They get priority. This just is a belief of theirs.
Forest. Would you at least acknowledge that is what they will hear? And it's up to you. Ministers can say we agree with that or we don't agree with it. You can't simply say let's balance things. Do you agree with what your lawyers said or don't you?
Yes, of course we do. But
your lawyers under your guidance.
So she agrees. Yes, of course, we give, asylum seekers preferential treatment. And, yeah, I agree. You don't have a right to attack minorities, but it is kind of an interesting, you don't have a right to attack anybody, minority or majority. But when the minorities attack the majority, whatever that is, I mean, it's just an individual who attacks another individual, in my opinion. It's not necessarily this group person attacks this group person. Therefore, because of the group dynamics, the person who attacked should be let off the hook. No, it's a person who committed a crime. That crime has these consequences. So if you're enforcing crime on a racist basis, based on the color of your skin or your ethnicity or whatever, based on your race, that's a racist policy. So if just because you're a minority and you're from Afghanistan and you stab a white guy from England, because the white guy is privileged and has more status or something, you get a lesser crime than if he were to stab you? No, it's the same thing. It's both unacceptable. And you know, so do you think Native Brits don't have a right to attack minorities? I know, I agree. Yeah. Did you do you think that minorities have the right to attack Native Brits, or do you not think that ever happens? But this is disturbing for a Native population, and this wouldn't be allowed in any other country. I guess maybe the British wear that as a badge of honor, that they have this noble cause for the outsider to come into their country and they'll take care of them. But it is kind of weird to put foreigners above your own people who built the country and paid for everything and, developed these systems of law and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't seem like they're taking a lot of that seriously. So this is a Pakistani immigrant in Denmark, and he's right. So he says, we have 5 children while you have 1 or 2. In 10 years, there will be more Pakistanis than Danes here. There are only 5 million Danes. You will soon be exterminated. And that's right. I mean, Europe is just not having anywhere close to enough kids. And, the migrants from the Middle East and even African migrants, they have loads of kids. So it doesn't take long to produce a huge number of people when you're having kids. When you're having 5, 6 kids, that's definitely what's going to happen. And the same kind of thing will happen in England, and the same kind of thing has happened in a lot of U.S. cities and states. There's different regions in the U.S. that have higher birth rates, and there are certain regions that have lower birth rates. And so the regions with the lower birth rates are bringing in more immigrants because they need more. And there's really no solution to a developed country and their birth rates going down. I mean, we don't know what the solution is to that. I mean, I guess it's take people from other countries and bring them into your country, but that seems like a strange solution to the problem, in my opinion, I guess. King Dusty, nobody has the right to attack anyone. I live 100 meters from a migrant hotel in a village called Danshinger. Sorry, I suck at. I probably butchered that. They never cause trouble and keep to themselves. A lot of the provisions they receive are charity driven and not public funds. Well, I saw the other day there was some guy who rejected a contract to house migrants, and it was something. I mean, it was a pretty high amount that the government was paying him to house the asylum. It was asylum seekers. But I mean, I'm glad to hear that they're not causing problems in your village. That's good. Do they integrate into the society? Is there ways for them to integrate? Are they just sort of keep to themselves? They don't really assimilate at all? Do they speak the language? Oh, so this is bizarre. Maybe I can get your opinion on this, King Dusty, since you're so willing to converse with me here. This is a video where According to Dublin City Council, flying the Irish flag in Ireland means you support English nationalism.
Dublin City Council says it's considering how to respond to the flying of tricolours on lampposts in communities across the city, which are believed to be part of a campaign by anti-immigration groups. It follows requests by a number of councillors and residents groups for the council to take action in response to the practice, which they say is an attempt to intimidate and mark territory.
Over the summer, lines of tricolours have appeared on the streets of a number of areas across the capital, including Ballyfermot, Coolock, Finglas and the north and south inner city. A number of anti-immigration campaigners have posted online in support of the erection of tricolours. Now residents of the North Strand have written to the council to ask for the flags to be removed.
We're a wonderfully diverse community and neighbourhood, and that has really been added to over particularly the last decade, by all of our new neighbours who have come in. The message is coming from a very tiny minority. They're very vocal, but they are tiny. They don't speak for the rest of us. And the message seems to be one of intimidation, one of unwelcomeness and hate.
A number of public representatives have also raised questions about the flags.
The patriotism that those flying these flags are borrowing from is English nationalism. And I think it's rich to hear of Irish patriots borrowing from their English cousins on this issue. We absolutely have to stamp this out. I'm calling on Dublin City Council to remove flags that are being put up with hateful intent. People are going around videoing themselves putting these flags up, saying they're reclaiming our city, they're taking it back. And I think that type of hateful rhetoric has to be stamped out.
Yeah, lots of nationalism going on for sure. Yeah, it is a vocal minority. I think that she's probably right. But it's they're putting up their own country's flag. How, I guess it's a little confusing to me. Why is that a hateful thing to do? They're putting up the flag in hate, saying, this is my country, get out of here. But it is their country. You don't have to let anybody into your country. And that doesn't make you a hateful person. It might mean that you go broke and you totally ruin and destroy your country because you lose out on services and all kinds of things that people from other countries could have been doing to help your economy and help your society, all those things. But you have the right to do that as your own country. It's like these people think that they don't even have a country. So if you're, first of all, I don't know how they would even tell that somebody's putting up a flag with hateful intent. I mean, this is our country. Why is that hateful? It's accurate. It is. They're the citizens. And it doesn't make you hateful to not want migrants, just like it wouldn't make Afghanistan hateful to not want Europeans there. They want to preserve their culture and their way of life, and it doesn't usually work out doing that. And I would agree that that's probably a bad idea, but it's a bad idea that you have the right to do. It's sort of like if you want to have a socialist country, I guess that's you guys. You want to destroy your whole society, then go right ahead. I guess it's up to you. It doesn't make you hateful of capitalist countries or whatever, I guess, because you don't let them in. I don't know. It just seems like a strange thing to me. It seems like a weird line of rhetoric that these people are taking. Oh, you're hanging a flag with hateful intent. I mean, for fuck's sake, you could make anything hateful if that's what you're doing. It's and I don't know. I guess to me, the intent thing doesn't really make any sense because you haven't actually committed anything. It's sort of like thought police, I guess, in my opinion. It's like we're predicting, we're thinking we know what you're doing or why you're doing it, and that's going to lead to these behaviors. Therefore, if we stop them, like preemptive war, things like that. I mean, that seems like a bad idea. Yes, that I agree with. Intent makes more sense in terms of murder versus manslaughter. Yes, if you intended to do it, then and you pre-planned it and they have evidence and all that, then yeah, that's much more serious than, doing it unintentionally. So, it's like, but like, how are you going to improve intent if somebody puts up a flag of their own country? And they film themselves and they're like, I'm putting up this flag because I hate people who are not from my country and I want them all to be harmed in very serious ways. I guess it's not actually causing harm to these people unless there's some outbreak of violence against asylum seekers and migrants that I'm not aware of. But this lady said it's a tiny minority of people who are even interested in this kind of stuff. And the majority of the people are happy to have migrants there. And, I'm a conservative guy. I have a lot of conservative friends, and we have lots of immigrant friends. I mean, there's a lot of immigrants who came here legally, and we're good friends, and they're great, and we love having them here. And I agree, they bring a different perspective, a different culture. They bring these expansive things. It's fun to interact with them. It's fun to go to other countries and see how they live. I think most people agree on that. I think the real issue, except for the extremists who are, sort of more extreme nationalism and just dislike people who aren't them and all that kind of stuff. Like that's a kind of a different category. But I think from a conservative perspective, the issue really is crime and a concern about crime, a concern of not knowing if these people are criminals or not coming into your country. And, like in the US, for example, we let in millions and millions and millions in a short amount of time that weren't being vetted, that nobody knows who they are, where they are, or what they were up to. And so I think that's a justified right concern. Now, that doesn't mean that all of them are terrible people, but we want to know who the terrible people are, and we want to get them, and we want to make sure that they don't injure innocent people. That seems like a reasonable thing. What do you got here? Nothing wrong with putting a flag up. In the UK, we have a unique issue where the St. George Cross was co-opted by the EDL. So, and so stained it forever. Yeah, I've kind of assumed that it was something like that. People have been treating it kind of like how in America people see the Confederate flag or something, where it's just like has this terrible negative connotation, and you shouldn't fly it. And I mean, it gives me, kind of makes me uncomfortable to see people with it as well. But it's something like that. I'm assuming. So people aren't concerned about the Union Jack at all. That's seen as being an okay symbol, because it is, a lot of this stuff is all about St. George's Cross, and that's the one people seem to be really, really riled up about. Okay, let's see. What else do I have here for us? Okay, so yep, here's an example of what we were just talking about. Police are now making random arrests, anyone carrying the English flag. So, okay, let's just take a look. Let's see.
Hey, come on.
Do your job.
You can't see the flag. It's on the end of that the pole that he's holding.
I've got freedom of speech. Freedom of speech.
Also, it's got a Union Jack. So yeah, I mean, you get the point. What I do find interesting is that there is a lot of young people involved in this. And I don't think people quite realize what is going on with young men, especially men, 25 max. And the younger you go, the more radical these kids are, the farther and farther right they are, and not far right in a way that's like what people mistakenly call far right, which means capitalism and immigration control and things like that. Not that kind of. I mean, we're talking far right. We're talking nationalist. We're talking bordering fascist. People who want Christian theocracies, and they're talking about banning gay marriage. I mean, way off to the right. And these young people like this, this is how they think. So what they're thinking here is, look at these people. They are trying to destroy our country. They're trying to destroy my future. They're bringing in these people that I have to compete with, who are taking our housing, taking our jobs, and they're giving them preferential treatment. The system is against me. The system hates me. The system is terrible. It's corrupt. So we're going to burn it down. We're going to replace it with something that's authoritarian on my terms. That's what these kids, and that's what this kind of shit's going to push them to do. I'm not kidding you. Like, these kids are what, and it's not because of Andrew Tate or Trump or any of those kinds of things. It's because they live in the society too. They're chronically online, so that's a big part of it. But they're watching their opportunities. They're watching the generations before them make terrible decisions that have now affected them. They're seeing the jobs evaporate. They're seeing their options, their dating prospects are bad. They're, things like that. I think that this is why you see so many young people at these far right protests, and at the far left protests, or even just the leftist protests, all you see are old people. You don't see any young people. It's all people in their 70s who are holding their signs and, anti this, anti that, boo Trump, or, stop oil or whatever. There is going to be something that happens. You guys look into it. I mean, seriously, the young men in the West are not happy. Not at all. Not happy. Their solutions are not moderate solutions. They think Trump's way too moderate. He's a centrist compared to these young guys. So yeah, King Dusty, I think you're right. Yep, this is exactly right. They're disillusioned because the state has failed them. I live at home, work full time at 27 years old. If I was unemployed or working with minimum wage, I'd also be a radical. Yeah, I mean the similar thing is going on in the U.S. It's where they don't feel like they have the opportunities that people in the past have had. And I feel for these kids. I think they're right. I do think that their prospects are much worse than what people have had in the past. And, old people will always say the same thing. Well, they're just lazy. They're entitled. They don't want to work. They don't blah, 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 blah. Okay. I don't think any of that's true. I think that when you look at inflation, when you look at wage growth, you look at all these kinds of things, you look at how late people are getting married, how often they're getting married, all of this stuff, it's against these guys. And then on top of that, they're bringing in foreigners and giving them preferential treatment instead of being concerned about them, the natives, the up and coming, the people who, upon whose back the future of the country depends. Especially when you're talking about social services and welfare state. So then if they do overcome all of these hurdles that are put in front of them, and when they do contribute and they are successful, then what's going to happen is the government's going to take even more of the stuff that they have, because they're going to be so desperate and so in need of providing for these social services and the dwindling population of workers. And these kids are a lot more aware of these kinds of dynamics than I think I would have ever been at their age. Because even when I was, 20 years ago, when I was that age, things were much different than they are now. Upward mobility was not nearly as much of an issue then. There was jobs all over, So I think that it's just gotten much worse, and I don't think that the leaders are really aware of what it's like to be these kids. Go to college, get a bunch of debt, and then come out with no job prospects and working at a gas station because the entry-level jobs are gone because AI's taken them all, or that's what their future looks like. This isn't going to turn out well. We need to start focusing on this more. Not just saying, okay, you had a flag, so now you're bad. That's not really solving anything. And it's like, they think that this kid carrying a flag around is going to result in like a bunch of violence or something. No, these kids being disenfranchised is really what's going to cause them to do that. And I get it. They're seeing that, okay, the flag, carrying this flag is a symbol of the discontent and the possibility of an outbreak of violence and disruption. But instead of addressing it, it's like they're just addressing they're putting a Band-Aid on a huge wound, and then they're acting like that's somehow solving something. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything. And if anything, it's going to make these kids more radical faster, because they're like, see, now look, I can't even show pride in my country. They won't even allow me that little bit of dignity. I can't even be proud of where I'm from, proud of my family, proud of my heritage. Nothing. I can't have anything. I can't have opportunity. I can't have pride. I can't have anything. And I get it. So then it's just, I don't know. I guess from my American perspective, this is just so crazy to me that they would be so.
But it looks like the police are trying to cause a scene. Look at that.
It's a bad
look
look.
what they're doing. Look what the police are doing.
Especially in
what are they doing?
Especially with X. This is not good. Not a good look.
What are the police doing here?
Move down the stairs. It's not safe on these stairs.
What are they doing?
Just for the bottom of the stairs.
Have a look at this.
Yeah, so I believe this was at some kind of council meeting or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I can't quite remember. Maybe it says here. Woman arrested for flying a British flag at Epping Council building. Okay. Yeah. So what is this? Why are they hating on the Union Jack as well? This also has been co-opted, and they see it as a sign of radicalism. Is that what's going on there? Well, she's not harming anybody. She's just standing there with the flag. If this was, I'm not sure about what it's like in the UK, but in the US, if this was a Palestinian flag or a gay pride flag, it wouldn't be an issue. It's a breach of a Section 14 notice. It's because she's somewhere she's not supposed to be doing, causing commotion. Is that what this is? Yeah, so here's this is going on a lot. Okay, I got it. Yeah. This guy is taking down St. George. An old guy. Yeah. So probably put up by a bunch of young guys, taken down by an old guy. There's definitely a demographic issue, I think, going on here. So this lady here is claiming that they're going to refuse to pay BBC license fees and vow to withhold council tax until the government responds.
License fee. Furthermore, we will not pay council tax. As non-payment of taxes has long been a legitimate form of protest in our land. We call upon English people to join us in this peaceful stand. Raise the colours, fly the St George Cross across England, and the Essex County flag in our proud country. Let us unite in these actions, refuse the licence fee, withhold council tax, and display our flags with pride. This is our message, and we ask you to share it with the nation. Protect our children!
Yeah, well, there's some old guys in there, I guess. So not all young guys, but yeah. So I don't know if this is even a realistic thing or if this is just some kind of performance. If they don't pay their council tax, I don't know if that's how bad of a thing that is to do there. I mean, you wouldn't get away with it in the U.S. if you didn't want to pay your taxes. This would be a pretty huge issue. Yeah. So this is the thing. The migrants. Let's look at this.
So you have a problem with my words?
Yes. Okay. So this lady is confronted by the police. Okay. Yeah. So there is consequences. I assumed that it would be something like that. If you don't pay, they'll throw you in jail, take your house, confiscate. They'll get their money one way or the other. Yeah, makes sense. So this video I thought was interesting because the lady, this I think is sort of and we don't know the full context here, granted, but this is kind of, I think, what a lot of people are finding problematic.
So you have a problem with my words?
Yes.
Because a filthy migrant just spat on me? And you've got the issue with me.
We have a duty to challenge that language, yeah, because we're police officers.
Because he's filthy and he's migrant and he attacked me like the other one.
We're trying to help you report which is offensive, isn't it? We can't not challenge that language because people in the public.
Okay, what's your numbers? So you'll find my language offensive. 1483 3028 1192.
Challenge you when you use language like that.
Especially when you're in here in the public as well, because obviously people walking past us.
I think that's fair.
But I think filthy migrants attacking English people is disgusting.
Yeah, but you're also swearing as well, madam.
And that's an issue. Since when is swearing a crime?
And you're in public where there's people, kids that are far away, people can hear that.
Well, I'm not interested in a PC lecture. If you want to take my details, that's fine.
Okay, so this is, you know, in a sense, this is why free speech is so important. Look at how dangerous these people think free speech is. They are going over the top to control it because they know the power that it does have. Now, that's one thing I appreciate about the United States is we are willing to take that risk. We think the benefits of free speech far outweigh the benefits of censored speech. So you can call somebody a filthy migrant and you don't even give it a second thought. It doesn't even matter. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So this lady gets spat on by a migrant. She responds. Now, maybe she was already giving the guy a hard time, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if she instigated this whole thing. So, but granted, let's just to go with her story here. He spits on her. These people aren't apparently concerned about that. She calls him a name. And now they 3 cops are here to investigate her crime. And they also, and now you're swearing. I mean, that's just, no cop would ever say that here. I mean, you're swearing. Obviously you're a danger to society. You're going to go and, you know, rob somebody or commit a crime because you use a swear word, or, you know, I don't know. So free speech or freedom of expression in British law is not an absolute right. If the government decides what you have to say is against public interest, they can stop you. Yeah. Then that's not really free speech. It's state controlled, state censored speech. And so the problem is when you get a government that sucks at the public interest, they just take things that are, you know, their own sort of pet peeves and put them in. How is any speech that's not positive would be against public interest, right? Like, I mean, where does this line seems so murky to me and so ridiculous that the government would get to decide things like this. The government is an incompetent buffoon who almost always chooses the wrong thing. And then to have them choose these kinds of things. So if this migrant would have called her a filthy Brit, do you think that this would have been the same? They would have had the same response? No, I don't think so. And I think that's the problem, is that these things are not being applied to both sides. So, you know, we don't know if maybe they did go get the migrant who spat on her, but it seems like they weren't all that concerned about that. And the migrant, no, it doesn't matter. But you said a word and now it's scary. So are these stories true? King Dusty, maybe you can verify. So this here is from the Daily Mail. Iranian man who raped his lodger in London can't be deported in case he is persecuted in his homeland for being a convicted rapist. Are these the kinds of weird decisions the courts are making there? I see these headlines all the time. I'm never quite sure. So it sounds too ridiculous to me to be true, but I see them so often, it makes me wonder. I thought this was a funny video here where these are, I think they're maybe healthcare workers in Germany, and they're being taught how to defend themselves with a towel from a knife attack.
Und ich schlage zum Kopf. Ich treffe den Kopf und die Augen. Und ich schlage zum Kopf.
How effective do you think that is? He got stabbed about 5 times while he was doing that. That's so silly. And who, just out of curiosity, what do you think, who do you think would be the kind of person who would have a knife in Germany that would be doing something like this, that someone would have to protect themselves with a towel? You know, I don't know. This seems like a ridiculous self-defense. Slap him in the face with a towel. It didn't even phase this lady, you know, and it's most likely going to be a guy. It's not even going to affect him at all. I thought he was going to wrap the towel around the arm, you know, or something, and pull him and disarm him or something. He's just slapping him in the face, Oh yeah, King Dusty. The papers don't report on the record levels of deportations. Now, that has been something that surprised me, because Starmer has been actually pretty tough lately, at least, on with deportations, and just, hey, if you commit a crime, you're out of here, stuff like that. So I think that's good to see. I think it's reasonable to say, if you're here seeking asylum or illegally or even as a migrant and you commit a crime, now I don't know if these speech crimes apply to these people, but they should. If you commit a crime, you break our laws, you're gone. You're out. We have a zero tolerance policy. I think that's totally reasonable. Okay, yeah, so police in England are now assaulting citizens that are wanting migrants to be deported. So
Fucking leave him, you get back, get back, get back, move back.
yeah, so a lot of this same stuff, kind of over and over. This is the video I was talking about earlier, where Starmer is talking about the migrant hotels. I just found this kind of comical.
How would you feel if it was a hotel?
So it's almost like he feels like he just has no choice. That the migrant hotels and the bringing in of migrants and all that, it's sort of out of his hands. And I think in a certain respect it is, because it's more of like an EU. These are the rules of the EU. These are from previous treaties and things of the past. And these are just like the rules that you have to take them. You have to take asylum seekers. And so some of these other countries like Poland have said, no, we're not doing it. We won't do it. And some others have been more less cooperative, I guess, or more willing to disobey. The UK hasn't apparently been willing to do that. And so to me, Starmer here is like, well, it kind of seems like he's like, well, what would I even do about it? But let me know what you think.
How would you feel if it was a hotel at the end of your road? If your daughter was having to walk past one of these hotels every day?
I completely get it. Local people, by and large, do not want these hotels in their towns, in their place, and nor do I. I'm completely at one with them on that. I'm not in any way underestimating the strength of feeling that there is.
How would you feel if...
So anyway, yeah, he wouldn't want one in his local town either. So I at first I thought this was maybe like somebody mocking him, but I think this is actually real. So nobody wants them in their majority of people don't want them in their town. He doesn't want one in his own town. So why are there any? I mean, aren't you the people making these decisions to have them there, even when nobody wants them there? I mean, what is going on here? Who's really making these decisions? Yeah, history here of violent riots. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so well, let's see. I think that's all I've got. There was some Muslim stuff. I think that this plays into it as well. When you see videos like this is concerning. It seems like there's a concerted effort now, not all Muslims, but there seems to be amongst a lot of their leaders that the plan is really to kind of colonize the West, in the UK especially, and with their birth rates and things, not violently or anything like that, but just if this is any way true, it's a very smart plan actually, because they can move in. They have a willing host country who's willing to treat them well, give them amenities, give them access to a bunch of things they didn't have in their own country. And then while they're feeding off the host country, they can be repopulating at a rapid rate. And it'd be in a generation their population would be through the roof. And they didn't have to fire a single shot, and they can take over the city councils, they can take over the school boards, they can institute, their own culture, their own customs if they want. So I think this is really disturbing for a lot of people too, this
equality
idea.
To all of its members. Is there such a thing in Islam? Is there equality of faith? If we look to one hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the authority of Abu Huraira, Sahih Muslim. So no Sunni Muslim can really argue against Sahih Muslim or Sahih Bukhari. Rasulullah said, don't greet the Jews and the Christians before they greet you. And when you meet any of them on the roads, force them to go on the narrow side of it. And Imam Malik, he said the same thing as well. In fact, Umar ibn Khattab, who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that if there was to be another Nabi after me, it would be Umar ibn Khattab in his own charter, not charter of the United Nations. In his charter,
thanks, King
with the
Dusty.
people
Appreciate
of
it.
Sham,
Thanks for joining me.
with those Christians of Sham,
Very
his
helpful.
charter was Kafir and Muslim, they're not allowed to wear the same clothes as one another. If the Muslim, he comes out on the day of Eid and he sees Kafir with nice clothes, the Kafir has to take his clothes off and give it to the Muslims. The Kafir, when he walks inside the street, he has to wear a red belt around his neck, and he has to have his forehead shaved, and he has to wear two shoes which are different from one another. He's not allowed to walk on the pavement. He has to walk in the middle of the road, and he has to ride on a mule. And that's only for the adults, not for the children. And you can see how Islam would make the child become a Muslim. The kafir, or the child growing up in a state of kufr, he will turn to Islam. Why? Because the child will be walking along with his dad. They say, Dad, yeah, why you got your forehead shaved? I don't know whether these Muslims, they make me do it. Why you got to walk? Why can't you ride the animal? Like the Muslims, they ride the animal like this. Why are you walking with both legs dangling on the side of the donkey? Why is it every time the Muslim comes to you, he asks you for your clothes, you give it? Why is it every time he tells you to get down from the horse, you have to take it? And not only that, he said the kuffar, they can have their churches. They can have their churches, but they're not allowed to ring the bell. And if a Muslim, he's walking by, let's say, for example, a Muslim's been on Edgware Road, for example. He's had some nice shisha, some nice steak, no hubble bubble deal with anything like that. And he's walking along and he's rubbing his belly and he's like, oh man, I don't want to upset my wife tonight. What he can do, he can go to the church, knock on the door. John, let me in. Okay, no problem. John has to put up Abdul Ghafoor for the night. Abdul Ghafoor with his big belly, having his nice kebab. John has to open up the church and he has to go there and sleep there nice and comfortable and say, all right, John, thank you. And then carry on going early in the morning. Which wife is going to live with John under that type of circumstances? What kind of honoring is this for me to live with John and Abdul Ghafoor comes every Friday night and sleeps in our bed as well? Of course, because Sunnah is to look after the guest, innit? I can't make you sleep on my floor if you can't. You're Muslim, by the way. So what about when Abdul Ghafoor goes to John's house? John, sleep on the floor, and I'll sleep on the bed. What's gonna happen? Tracy's gonna be on the floor thinking, my husband, he's got a forehead shaved, and this one, look at this one, Khatab, mashallah. Which one's more attractive? We're not gay. I'm just saying. A man with his forehead shaved and one belt around his neck and 2 different colored shoes, or Amir Khatab. Amir Khatab, we're talking about here now, with that nice Chechen hat, big beard, you know, a bit to the side. Yeah. And he's got the badges there. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Yeah. And he's got a big gun and he's got a big camouflage jacket on, nice boots, gloves as well. Even if he's got a couple of fingers missing, still looks attractive. Yeah. What's Tracy going to do? John's in for a problem. He just let him in for a kebab. He lost his own wife as well. So everyone's going to become Muslim. That is, my dear brothers, the Islamic State.
Okay, yeah. So you see, that's much different. He's not talking about violence or anything like that, but about sort of a cultural domination that converts, I guess, people to Islam because they're going to see how much better they have it if they do. But you know, it's kind of a ridiculous scenario because none of that would happen. John would never let them come into his house and sleep in his bed, or I mean, any of that kind of stuff. If Islam is the dominant culture who is in control, and there's a minority group of Christians, let's say, and they get to say that John has to let him in because this is the rules and the laws now that you're living under, then that's a different story. And I think that's kind of more what he's talking about here. So that's their plan to convert the entire world. Hey guys, I got to get running here. I appreciate you guys joining me. I will be back hopefully tomorrow. So I hope you join me again. All right. See ya.